New York Times Justice Department reporter Katie Benner is with us, and Tim Miller, writer-at-large for The Bulwark, is also here. All right, y'all. Katie, I want to play this for you. It's sound from former Attorney General Bill Barr. Take a listen.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was that the claims of fraud were and, he was indignant about that. And I reiterated that they'd wasted a whole month on these claims on the Dominion voting machines, and they were idiotic claims.
The very next day, the president released a video rehashing some of the very same claims that his chief law enforcement officer had told him were, quote, nonsense.
Now, we repeatedly heard testimony like Barr's during the hearing that Trump knew these claims were false. Could that have any weight in proving that Donald Trump didn't believe his own claims of fraud?
So I think what the committee is trying to establish is that indeed Trump should have had every reason to back off from these fraud claims, that he should have known what he was being told was wrong, and he should have conceded the election. One of the things that's not in this clip is Barr saying later, it did dawn on me that he might actually believe this, which is crazy. And that's a really important thing to note, because what the committee is trying to prove is that Donald Trump knew that what was being told to him about election fraud was completely wrong, because he should have been listening to people like Bill Barr. And so he was acting corruptly and criminally. What a defense attorney would probably say is what Bill Barr later said, which is he may have actually believed this, which somewhat undercuts the argument and implies that Trump actually thought that what he was doing was correct.
Fascinating. Okay, and very concerning. Okay, so this testimony from this second hearing, though, it did emphasize that numerous Trump campaign officials, including his own campaign manager, told him he'd lost the election. Now, to Katie's point, the question is, did the president really believe that he'd actually won the election? But we also know that those campaign officials, they also warned him against pursuing conspiracy theories. Tim, you are no stranger to political campaigns. So if your campaign manager is telling you it's over, it is over, right? Is there any merit here to the point that Katie just made? Like, what if the former president did believe this?
Yeah, look, I think that the insanity defense might work out for him in court, and, that might work out for somebody who is being, convicted of a crime. But I don't know if the insanity defense is really that compelling when you're the president of the United States and leader of the free world. I think that is equally damning, just damning in a different way. And so it's kind of a distinction without a difference. I don't know if, getting inside Trump's deluded brain is that important of an objective for the committee. I think that what the committee needs to prove is that the overwhelming amount of evidence that he had at his disposal demonstrated that he was perpetrating a fraud. And I think that they did that very well today with people from his inner circle.
Right. And I do think, it's important to note for folks at home who are watching, there's two things here. It's what the committee is tasked with doing, and this is a presentation to the American people of the findings of their investigation. This isn't a trial. This is really a presentation. And then there is the Justice Department and their investigation into January 6th, which can come with some criminal charges for a number of different people. So all of these things happening at one time. Okay. Also from Trump's campaign manager, he said in the hearing that he was counted as part of, quote, Team Normal, while Rudy Giuliani was, quote, Team Crazy for their take on election fraud. I want y'all to listen to that testimony right now.
I didn't mind being categorized. There were two groups of, we called them kind of my team and Rudy's team. I didn't mind being characterized as being part of Team Normal, as reporters, kind of started to do around that point in time. I said, hours ago, early on that, I've been doing this for a long time, 25 years, and I've spanned, political ideologies from Trump to McCain to Bush to Christie, and I can work under a lot of circumstances for a lot of varied, candidates and politicians. But a situation where, and I think along the way I've built up a pretty good, I hope, a good reputation for being honest and professional And I didn't think what was happening was necessarily honest or professional at that point in time. So that led to me stepping away.
Now, I found this clip completely fascinating. And Tim, I think you agree, because you have an article that's just released saying that Bill Stepien wasn't part of Team Normal. He was part of Team Coup. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, look, this was a lot of self-flattery, Simone, and this goes all the way back. You might remember the Committee to Save America at the beginning of the Trump administration, Dina Powell and these types who said that they were just going in because the country needed good people to serve around this crazy man. And the theory of this case was that these people were going to nudge Trump in the right direction, and it was better to have them there than the Kraken types or the Rudy types. But time and again, we saw why this theory was ridiculous. It was Trump that corrupted them. It wasn't them that made Trump better. And what we saw after the election, between the election and January 6th, is that there was a very, very small Team Normal within the Republican Party. Team Normal was Chris Krebs, who testified to the committee. It was Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. It was Alyssa Farah, who resigned as communications director during that time. Maybe one other person. There were like 5 people, you can fit them on a hand, who were the real Team Normal, who said, no, this has gone too far. Bill Stepien wasn't on that. He was still on the coup team. He just didn't want to ride shotgun with Rudy's craziest theories. He just sat in the background. And so this is all kind of a self-flattery, not reality.
Now, let's turn, look, Tim, we could do a whole separate thing, particularly on that, because I do, as someone who has served in an administration, who has served for a number of different principles, I do think that there is sometimes, these staffers get a little like, oh, I'm here to just, make sure it all goes well. But at the end of the day, there's a line, and everyone has to have a personal and professional line, and you need to know what you will do when someone crosses your line. And I would argue that Donald Trump crossed the line a long time ago before he alleging he did not lose this election. But I want to turn to the Justice Department, because, as I said earlier, this is not a legal hearing, right? But the Justice Department is investigating January 6th, and that investigation is ongoing. So, Katie, I want to know if you could kind of unpack for folks how this second hearing potentially could have bolstered the Justice Department's probe into other folks, maybe the former president of the United States of America.
So a lot of things happened in this hearing today. Most importantly for Trump, though, is whether or not the committee convincingly said that Donald Trump should have known better, that he should have known he lost the election, and that he acted, in contradiction of what he knew, and he was acting corruptly and conspiring against the United States. Now, whether or not the committee made that convincingly to the American people is certainly one thing. For the Justice Department to bring such a charge, they'd have to hit other hurdles, including the fact that there would be a defense team sitting in the room rebutting everything they said with their own evidence, which is something this committee does not have to contend with. So it's hard to say whether or not this has given the Justice Department what it needs in order to make that case in court. But I think what we do know is that it's given the Justice Department, a lot of testimony, people saying very ardently that they told the president what they had found, and what they had found was not that there was election fraud. And it also bolstered other things that we're going to be watching for during the midterms for the Justice Department. They have a really big task force on cracking down on threats to election officials and on cracking down on other sorts of misinformation and disinformation that we're going to see going into this midterms. And some of the most searing testimony came from local officials today who talked about the death threats that they received when they refused to undo the election and when they refused to say that there was voter fraud when there was none. And it was really, really stark. And I think we can expect to see more of that. And that will be a big, immediate problem for the Justice Department, even as they continue to try to unpack whether or not they could bring criminal charges against the former president.
I thought that testimony was completely compelling today. I thought all the video was. One of the pieces that struck me the most from today, as I was listening, was the committee's findings that at least $5 million of the dollars donated to the so-called Save America PAC ended up going to the organization that funded the January 6th rally. And I thought that was a really big deal. And there was other money that went to other entities, but not to defend the election disputes in court, when the Trump campaign had said that they were setting up a committee to fund the disputes in court. Tim, does this change anything for Donald Trump supporters? Like, we've long since said, like, oh, that he's lying to you, but we had it laid out in broad daylight today that he was lying to them.
Yeah, the receipts are there. Look, I don't know if the folks that are being defrauded, were watching the hearings today, but I do think that the evidence there, the receipts are so clear that it's a case that people like, Tim Ryan, for example, in Ohio, has already done a little bit of this, needs to make to voters as we head against November. And it is blatantly clear that Donald Trump stole money from his most ardent supporters, to fund him and his kids and Kim Guilfoyle and all these folks' lifestyles, and it was not going to what he was claiming it was going to. So, I think that that's very clear. Whether that, will be able to break through to the people who are defrauded, TBD, but it's a case that I think needs to be made because it undermines the core case of MAGA, that he cares about the forgotten man, that he cares about them. That's all, laid to be false by their actions after the election.
Absolutely. Well, Katie Benner, our Justice Department guru, Tim Miller, our Republican whisperer, thank you both very much.